Hi everyone, this is Zeeshan Hamid and welcome to my first virtual town hall and live Q&A. Before I start, I want to address a topic. Last week I did a video talking about how people who were arguing that protests shouldn't happen on account of the pandemic and people who went out and protest for racial equality and justice both had valid points and they were coming from a good place. Now, what I thought was a reasonable statement to make caused some keyboard warriors online to completely lose their fecal matters. Spoken like a true politician refusing to take sides once said. Spoken like a beta male who has no opinions of his own, the other one accused me of. And to be honest, I actually don't know what the beta male comment means on account of not being 12 anymore. One of the reasons why we have such an insurmountable political divide in this country is because we have started seeing every issue as black or white, right versus wrong, good versus evil, as opposed to acknowledging that people with different life experiences tend to optimize different things and make different trade-offs. That's simply what it is. And the fact of the matter is that I don't know your life, I don't know your world. What right do I have to pass judgment on you and look down upon you and feel superior simply because you have a different outlook or simply because you're optimizing for different things? Other than issues of fact or equality or justice, most issues we deal with are simply matters of opinion. And the problem is that in politics, the herd mentality and the ease of finding an angry mob ready to lynch anyone who disagrees with a mob belief has dumbed down our political discourse to the point where we can simply not have conversations with each other. We need to step away from this testosterone-driven, chest-thumping, buzzword-laden political discourse and get to the point where we hear the other side, understand their perspective, and have a dialogue with them. So even if we disagree, we at least understand each other and know where the other side's coming from. In fact, one of the biggest blessings I have in my current political role is that I get to hear people and I get to hear from people from all different backgrounds and from people who hold different opinions, and as a result I've developed a genuine respect for all viewpoints except for bigotry. Of course, like I said, when it comes to facts, justice, and equality, there are no opinions, but other than that, people have different opinions. We need to start respecting that. We need to start having dialogue so we understand why people hold the opinions they hold. That's my rant for today. Let's get to your question. Hey, whoa, that was an abrupt transition. If you cannot hear me, let me know. Well, if you cannot hear me, you can tell me anyway. About 10 seconds, the webcam only started to work 10 seconds before the stream started. I came in 15 minutes before to test everything out, and the webcam decided to stop working. So it's back now. I'm going to break eye contact because I have to look at your questions and questions you're typing. I got a couple of questions before as well, so I'll take them. Hi, Dada. Good to see you. So before I start taking the live questions, I want to take a couple of questions that you sent me earlier. One question that came up, and I got tagged on a bunch of posts yesterday and today on masks, and masks being mandatory now that we're entering stage 2. So my position generally on issues like this has been that these should not be political decisions and they should be made by experts in the right field. A similar example where I've always been pretty much the only counselor who've always voted against a certain thing is speed limits. So the way speed limits work in Ontario is that local politicians can set speed limits arbitrary. So if you're ever driving on a street and you see you're driving at 70 kilometers an hour and it drops down to 50 and jumps back up to 70 again, that's almost always the indication that someone in that 50-kilometer stretch lobbied their local council, which then relented. And it's almost always a bad idea because the variance in speed, and the numerous studies proving it, the variance in speed actually increases accidents, increases pedestrian clashes, especially pedestrian accidents involving children. Now, what does that have to do with masks? I'm coming to it. Similar to that issue, I mean, my position on that issue has always been it should be engineering decision. With masks, it should be medical decision. And Halton's medical officer, so far, she might come up with something differently, but so far she's recommending masks, but she's not recommending masks to be mandatory. That might change at the Ontario level. It might change at the Halton level, but I really don't think that it should be a political decision. I don't think politicians should need to be involved. So she's looking at data. Her team's looking at data. The latest we had council meeting on Wednesday, which was yesterday. It feels like forever ago. But yesterday, the word was that they're highly recommended, but they're not required. So whether they become required or not, that requirement will come from the health department and not from your political council. Let me get on here. Oh, you can hear me, and I can hear you, and I can see you. All right. The other question was around patio. So, we're entering stage two, which means that restaurants can start serving in patios, but not inside. You can't dine in inside, but if a restaurant has patio, then they can serve. So what councils are doing across Ontario, not just us, and we did the same thing, is we're moving on to giving temporary patio exemptions, so allowing restaurants that normally don't have space for patio to put patios anyway. Typically, they're taking parking spots, and sometimes that means their number of parking requirements will drop below the legal minimum, and we'll give them an exemption anyway. Because we're trying to get businesses going. These are small businesses, so we're trying to make sure that they can get out and earn a living, obviously. So the decision there is restaurants can apply and get that permit fairly quickly. And I got a bunch of questions on exactly how to go about it. So if you go to milton.ca, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to post a link in the description of this video after the video ends. And that way you'll be able to get that answer, looking at the description. All right. Can you tell us a bit about collection of COVID-19 race-based data? Is Halton collecting it effectively? What's the purpose and how is data being collected? That's actually a great question, and I don't have the answer to that question. So, turns out that I don't know everything. Let me find out for you, M8 Malik. I'll find out the answer and I will respond to your comment in YouTube. So if you check your comment sometime tomorrow, or if you want, you can send me an email. I can respond an email as well. So I don't know if we're collecting waste-based data and how we're storing it and what the purpose is. This question just hasn't come up yet, so I don't have the answer. But I will most certainly find out for you, and I will let you know. By the way, so I'll put that back up again. And again, I'm breaking eye contact with you because I need to look at the questions that are coming in, and comments are flowing in. And most comments are not questions. You can leave other comments too, but questions are more appreciated. The other question I got today was construction on Bronte. So Bronte actually has multiple stretches where constructions are happening. The stretch between Main and Steele. So if you ever traveling north from Bronte and you cross Main Street, you pass through this old, non-urban, almost a country road with ditches and curves. It's getting fairly dangerous, actually. So we're urbanizing that stretch. You'll see a 3-lane road, a turning lane, and 2 travel lanes. We might even bury the power lines that are going through. That depends on some of the agreements. It's up in the air, but it might happen. And then you'll see sidewalks and trees, just a proper urban road. So that there's some work going on there. South of Main Street, south of Main Street, there's work happening on just fixing up sewer lines, other stuff. If the question I got was from a resident whose grass was ripped out. So if your grass is ripped out as part of it, generally it wouldn't be your private area. It would be the boulevard part that's actually owned by the town. But the contractors that are doing this work will come and fix the grass. So they will put sodding back in, and so you won't be left with a ditch that you'll have to take care of. Thank you for doing this. You're welcome. This is actually a good point. If you type the comment in Milton Talks, if you're watching the video in Milton Talk and you type the comment, this is how it comes out as anonymous Facebook user. So if you really have a question where you want to be recognized, jump on over either to YouTube or my Facebook page. And this might be a good opportunity to mention that if you haven't subscribed, jump on over to YouTube, my YouTube channel, and subscribe there. And the reason is that I can't really afford to spend 50 bucks US a month to stream on different channels at the same time. So after the first month, this will pretty much be a YouTube thing. So if you're interested, jump on over to YouTube, subscribe there. The subscribe button should be underneath YouTube under the video. Click the black bell icon so you can get notifications, and then we'll just do this as a YouTube thing. All right, back to questions. Can we please add underpass railway between Duncan Lane and Bronte Street? People in Scotland, Bishop Winton High School, etc. So I don't think that. I mean, that's a good question. It's a question that came up when I represented that area. It used to be part of Ward 8. So I used to represent that area, and the question also comes up just behind my house because I'm adjacent to Union Gas Trail. It's the exact same issue. The future neighborhoods that are getting built. So after not just myself, our new councillors, in 2010 when we got elected, the council changed. The new subdivision agreements were made. So the Boyne survey, we have that contract with the developers where we'll put an overpass pedestrian bridge. So if you live in a neighborhood that's cut off from the other neighborhood by the rail track, you'll have a pedestrian bridge. However, for the Scott neighborhood, that's where this question's from, and for the Harrison neighborhood where I live, that agreement wasn't made. And then these overpasses are incredibly expensive, not because, and again, it seems counterintuitive. Government of Ontario a few years ago passed certain accessibility laws, which make perfect sense, but essentially they require that any bridge you build have to be 100% accessible by wheelchair, which means that we can no longer build a short pedestrian bridge. We have to have a very long runway to build a ramp that's gradual, or you build a circular or whatever the technical term is ramp, so wheelchairs can go through it. Same goes for underpass. It cannot have only steps. If it has steps, it will have to have elevators as well, or it will need to start and be very have depth that's actually not steep enough so wheelchairs can go through it. And because of that reason, it becomes prohibitively expensive. So it's one of the things where the provincial government had the right idea and right intention, but they ended up doing something where I think they might need to go back and revisit. But as the legislation is right now, and I know this because I looked at it when I represented that area, and I looked at it for Harrison neighborhood as well. And if you live in Harrison neighborhood, if you see the overpass bridge on Louis Saint Laurent or along Glebe, we looked at a pedestrian path from Glebe to Louis Saint Laurent as well. They all have the exact same problem. In order to make them wheelchair accessible, they're almost impossible or prohibitively prohibitive. I cannot use correct grammar anymore. It's really expensive. So thank you for the Can you guys hear me now? All right. That's what happened when my computer turned off. I think something happened and my audio went away. All right. Is my audio back now? Let me know. Seems like audio is back. So I don't know how much of that question you heard, but the answer, I'll give you a shorter answer now. The answer is that yes, it is illegal. And yes, we are fining homeowners. Parking on grass is almost always illegal. Parking on patio, it could be legal or it could be illegal. It depends on the size of the patio and a bunch of other things. It's really expanding driveway. So if you see something, just report it to bylaw and they will come and fine it. I know for a fact that people are being fined because I have gotten a lot of angry emails because somehow I get blamed for everything, even though it's a unanimous vote. But hey, thank you, Kashmiri Foodie and Gavin and Network and Kevin and Mike and Facebook users for letting me know that you can hear me. All right. Yes, I did intentionally so you can read lips. Essentially, as I was talking, my monitor just turned off and turned back on again. It seems like something happened to the mic, so I just had to unplug and replug. Technology, right? There was another question. When will parking restriction return to normal? So, Basil, this is something we looked at recently. We had a long conversation. Different counselors independently had a long conversation with staff, and counselors talked among themselves as well. Essentially, there are two issues right now. One issue is that we're working at 39% capacity. So our number of staff we would have had in June has been reduced to 39%. So 61% has been laid off, or just contract wasn't renewed, and we can get seasonal workers and part-time workers. So we just really shortened staff. And the staff we have right now, they're focusing on COVID-related things. So right now, for instance, a lot of people are focusing on getting restaurant patio applications to make sure they are processed immediately as soon as possible to allow restaurant owners to open patios as soon as humanly possible. And for that reason, that's one of the reasons why we've taken away parking restrictions. Of course, it's to make things easier during COVID as well. Generally, you should expect them to come back when the province lifts the emergency order. And the reason is that we've had a massive revenue hit as well. Now, something most people don't realize is that bylaw is not a money maker for us. It actually costs us money. And I can go into detail in the different video why that is. But until the provincial emergency order is lifted, I don't think the parking restrictions are going to return back to normal. But that I hope that's going to happen next 2 to 4 weeks, as in the emergency order will be lifted next 2 to 4 weeks based on the numbers. All right, we'd love to bring them back. I have no idea what you'd like to bring back, Sandeep. There might have been other comment before that I didn't see. Oh, I think you're talking about parking restrictions. There we go. Yes, so I have gotten comments on both sides. Like I said, I would love to have Ontario lift emergency restrictions and for us to go back to the new normal. I don't think we'll go back to the old normal until there's a vaccine. But whatever the new normal is going to be, I'm hoping we can get to that state as soon as possible, reasonably, with testing and with monitoring and with everything else. That will include going to parks, that would include opening whatever facilities will be allowed to open under that thing. So province owns that process and is figuring it out, but I don't think parking restrictions will come back until the emergency order is lifted. Now, that said, though, that decision could change. I mean, council hasn't officially decided that yet. It's just that right now it's not being enforced, but with time, we can take a different view. Even intersections. Okay, so we are ticketing cars. I can tell you for a fact, we are ticketing cars that cause safety issues. So if someone parks illegally near the intersection and they block the visibility, they will get ticketed. If someone parks in a way where they block the sidewalk, they will get ticketed or can get ticketed if you call and report it. So parking tickets are being issued for safety-related issues. Where do you see Milton in 5 years? That's actually a great question. You know what? BTDT. We should make that a topic of a different video. And I'll get other counselors and stuff as well. We're going through, before COVID-19, we were working through our next official plan. So we've updated our official plan a lot, but right now Milton is still working through the official plan that was developed in 1990s. 1997, I believe, is when it was passed, which was an eternity ago. So we've updated it every 5 years, but now we're working on a brand new official plan that's looking at Milton, where Milton is now, and where Milton will grow in the next 30 years, really, because the 1997 plan has taken us to 20 plus years.
And there in the next 10 years at a very high level, judging by where the market is going, we are urbanizing fairly rapidly. GTA in general is urbanizing fairly rapidly. I know the university issue you haven't heard much about yet, but the university will happen in Milton, even without the provincial funding. It's something you would have heard a lot about already if it wasn't for COVID-19, but everything's different now. I see Milton will continue to be a very young community. Milton will continue to be a safe community. Milton would continue to be a very educated community. But one thing that's missing in Milton is jobs, and that's one thing we are focused on. The current council is focused on very heavily. Um, so in the next 5 years, if you don't see Milton if you don't see a good economic growth in Milton, then I would say I have failed. I will say the council has failed you, and that's one thing I see changing in the next 5 years. But you know what? Let's do a long video on it because that's a pretty detailed question. Have a good understanding of long-term financial impact COVID-19. You know what? We do and we don't. So we have a very good idea of the impact so far. So we know where we stand. We know what the situation is. We have the Hanlon situation. We're doing well so far. We had reserve to tap into. We have cut things. So far, so good. Now, the problem with long term is that A, we don't know when the provincial emergency order will be lifted. And B, we don't know what services will be allowed to provide. And C, we don't know what restrictions will be because we spend money on restrictions as well, right? So imagine if the province says, look, you can start renting out skating rinks and hockey arenas, but you can only do at 25% capacity, and you have to provide masks, and you have to, do certain things. It all costs money, and then we lose revenue there as well. So we really need to figure out what the final rules will be. As I mentioned earlier, there will be a new normal. And as soon as we know what the rules will be for the new normal, we can figure out this impact. Right now, we don't have an impact. We can't have a debt impact because municipalities are not allowed to borrow money. So we're operating for operating expenses. We cannot have an operating loss. We cannot be in deficit, and we cannot incur debt. And that's why we desperately, and if you can just send an email to your NPP and MP, we desperately need some federal and provincial help. I know that provincial federal governments have given a lot of help to businesses and individuals, but municipalities need that help as well to avoid massive tax increases just to maintain services. Now, I'm not predicting tax increases going to happen. My goal for this year, I'm chairing the Milton budget this year. So my goal as a budget chair would be, and I think all, if not most of my council colleagues will agree, would be to not do a tax increase, to maintain, to freeze things essentially. How do we maintain the same services without doing a tax increase? But things are really up in the air without knowing the rules. It's really difficult to predict. Can we proper city garbage and recycling bins? Tina, I think this question could mean two different things. So garbage is really regional. I think the question could mean in public areas like in parks and trails. If that's the issue, let me know and we can fix that. Or it could mean at the bigger what Peel Region did now, the garbage bin with lids or recycling bin with lids, so garbage recycling doesn't fly around. That's something region has actually looked at. That question came up yesterday's council meeting. I think that's the question. Different councilor asked the question, but the question did come up, and that bin is actually not the holy grail that I thought it was. When we looked at Peel, Brampton, and Mississauga, they've had two issues. One, in a lot of homes, when people live in semi-detached homes or even detached homes now, there's no space. They don't have space for those bins, and they don't like it. And second, the lid actually opens up very easily, and the garbage flies around anyway. We do need a better solution than we have today. So if that was your question, that's something that needs to be figured out. But right now, the garbage trucks Halton Region cannot accommodate that type of bin anyway. So. But if the region was, sorry, I got distracted by this question. Milton needs progressive government. I think Milton does. You know what? I will not comment on Milton's government. Linda, my streetcars think it's a highway, drive fast, risk getting in jail. How can you propose putting stop signs to prevent speeders? Linda, so that's a good question as well. We actually don't put stop signs to control speeding. There are other things we can do to control speeding. Stop signs, not that. Stop signs exclusively used to control right away. So when you have an intersection, it's to control people which street goes first. But if you can send me an email with your street name, I can have staff go out and do a speed study. Halton Police can also go out and ticket some cars. That helps at least temporarily. They can put up speed signs, and that helps temporarily. But what speed study does is that if there's a consistent problem with speeding, they can do certain traffic calming measures. Um, Speed bump is one of the traffic calming measures. We don't actually use speed bumps, but we can use road narrowing and a bunch of other things that we can help with speeding. So send me your street name in the email, and we can go there. What is your opinion on the new Milton Transit Master Plan? Hey, Marshall. You know what? I'm going to answer a very different question actually for you. We're going to have to come up with a brand new Milton Transit Master Plan for the post-COVID world. We are not going to be able to go back to the way things were. Right now, Milton Transit is running essentially for free because we're not, taking tickets. And people aren't going out all that much anyway. There will be a massive impact on Milton Transit because of COVID-19. So we're actually going to have to go revisit the Transit Master Plan and see what we can do. So we're going to have a new Transit Master Plan, and you can ask me what my opinion about that is. Residential. So residential, that's the answer. We actually don't have a way to use bigger bins right now because we don't have the proper garbage trucks for those. But next time the contract comes in, that's something a lot of Oakville, Burlington, and Milton councillors have brought up, and we're looking at. Why are the jobs advertised on Town of Milton website? Because we're not hiring. COVID-19, I don't think anybody's hiring right now. We're actually had to, I won't use the word layoff because we technically didn't lay off people. We just didn't renew a contract, and we didn't have as many seasonal workers. But like I said, running at 39% capacity because of all the revenue loss because of COVID-19 and all the services that are being provided right now. So that's the reason why you don't see any jobs. There are no jobs to advertise. Uh, that's Julie. That's a great question. I actually have stuff to throw out that's sitting on the side of my garage. My neighbors are kind enough not to complain about it, and I do need to uh, figure out when it's going to open on Sunday. I don't know actually. I see a message you posted on Facebook, so I'm going to find out. I'll get a definite date for you, and I'll respond to your comment later because I don't have a date right now. Hey, Facebook user. Current climates, devs and nonprofit, words, rate, and support. Uh, that's actually so. Currently, we can't provide space anyway, right? Because we can't. Those space where you'll have the facilities are closed, so you can't get in. You can't get in for space at the moment. But I do agree. Nonprofits are totally devastated right now, and they're providing very important services. And we need to get together and figure out how we can help nonprofits. And you nailed it. We can't really do a financial help because we are in a tight bind ourselves, but we might be able to do other things. And I think we need to have that conversation. We might be able to provide some advertising opportunities. We might be able to go and actively recruit volunteers for nonprofits and connect people. I think I would agree with you. The town of Milton have to take. Town of Milton will have to play a more active role in how this is done. All right, let me fly through these questions because we're soon running out of time and questions coming in. Yeah, so the mature neighborhood study. If you ask me for my opinion, that might be different from how it's going. I don't think the progress is what a lot of residents wanted to see at this point. But I do know that Milton Council is steady or without steady. Milton Council is completely on board with making sure that mature neighborhoods and their character is preserved, and we don't get a situation where you live in certain character neighborhood. Let's say you live in a neighborhood with one-story bungalows, and then somebody comes in and builds a four-story modern monster home, for lack of a better word, that doesn't really fit with the neighborhood. So that was one of the goals of the study, and we're completely on board with the goal. Now, whether the study's gone in a way that it can meet that goal or not, I actually don't know. I do have an opinion, which I would rather not answer without doing some more studies. So tell you what, sign back in next week for next week's video. Ask me the exact same question, and I will answer it much better for you next week. Lisa, thank you for the question. Milton really needs to consider a parking solution. 18 days not sufficient. I've changed my opinion on this. So if you passed me the same comment 5 years ago, I would have said, I don't care. You have a car, you bought a house, you figure it out, right? Now, the new houses in Milton are getting built in such a way that they genuinely don't have enough parking to support the kind of families that are living in Milton. And Milton generally is still a commuter town, so you will need cars. The problem there is, and what a lot of people don't realize, local council, we cannot simply wish for more parking space to exist because the Ontario Building Code controls how things get built. We don't have much control over it. We cannot put additional requirement on top of Ontario Building Code. We negotiate a bunch of stuff. We could potentially negotiate more parking, but it also drives prices high and drive people outside of the price range of homes. So it's a difficult problem, but I do agree that we need to come up with something more creative. For me, I mean, town of Milton, we can no longer just throw up our hands and say, hey, buy a bigger house with bigger driveway, because the reality is that people need multiple cars to live in Milton right now. So we need to invest in transit to make sure we change that. We need to bring more jobs to Milton to make sure we change that. But while that's happening, we need to acknowledge the reality that parking is a serious situation. Parking is a serious challenge for a lot of families, and we need to find a solution for those families. People have given a lot of good suggestions that I think we need to look at and work on. People have suggested perhaps giving using plaza parking lots or school parking lots that are being used in the evening or other areas. So there are the solutions. I don't have the solution for you right now, but I do agree that parking on the street is not a solution. So I will put that right up there. Parking on the street permits for more than 18 days, that's not the right solution. But we do need to come up with something. Just throwing up our hands in the air and say it's your problem and not mine, that's not a solution either. We did talk about masks, Jackie, early in the video. So just a quick summary is that the thing with masks is that our public health in Halton is currently recommending, not based on a political decision, but based on a medical decision and her her expertise. She's recommending that masks be highly recommended, but not mandatory. Now that decision might change, but that decision will still come from public health, and it's not really something that should come from politicians. So we're looking at public health. She's looking at government of Ontario. She's looking at our health counterparts at the municipalities, and discussions are happening. I know there's some municipalities, the public health department has recommended masks being mandatory. Some are not, and we are in the not category right now. That might change, but that's what it is right now. I really don't want it to be a political decision. I want it to come from the experts in the field. All right, I'm going to take a couple more questions and then wrap up. What are the chances that Main Street portion of it can be closed? You know what? I would love to do this. I actually posted about it on my Facebook page not too long ago, and it generated a lot of comments. Guelph is looking at doing it, and we're very closely looking at Guelph as to how they handle it. There are a couple of issues with it. So, as I say, I'm 100% in support. I do want to acknowledge that there are a couple of issues. One is that parking becomes a real concern. How do people get there? And I know that we can just drive and park around it, but people who live in those streets, they obviously don't like it. So if we close Main Street, but you live on Mary Street, then you might not like cars parked in front of your house for the entire weekend because people are parking to this walkable Main Street. It will also divert traffic from Main Street onto side streets. And again, same comment. Now you have cars parked and you have cars driving there as well. And then it causes issues with physical social distancing during COVID time as well. So while we do want to do this, we have to figure out a good solution. A good solution is that Town of Milton is actually looking at building a parking garage somewhere on Main Street. So we have a single spot where people can go and park and walk around Main Street. And I think that would be the ideal way of doing it, where we can build a parking garage. You go in there, you park your car in the garage, and then you walk to the Main Street, and then no traffic on the Main Street. Restaurants bring the patios up on the road. I cannot wait to see it, and that's one of my goals to get it done this term. All right. But thank you, sir. Okay, so if there are, I see there are more questions in the comments. Unfortunately, I do want to, the reason I want to stick with the limit is because I want to do this every week. And I don't want to spend an hour doing this on the first week and then run out of questions in subsequent week. I want to have a regular 30-day rhythm. So I do want to ask that if you're watching this on, Facebook, I won't be doing this on Facebook more than a couple of times because simply I can afford to. It will mostly be a YouTube thing. So jump on over to my YouTube channel and subscribe there and click the bell icon to get a notification so you can then we'll do this on YouTube after the first couple of times. I noticed that most of the questions came from Facebook, so maybe we should leave Facebook and leave YouTube and just do it in Facebook. But we'll figure that out. Uh, there are a couple more questions. I'll see if I can take more. But you know what? If there are more questions, I know two questions I promised to get back to you about, and one question I said, ask me next week, and I'll give you answer on mature neighborhood studies. So I'll get back to you on those three questions. Other questions, let's do it next week. So thanks for tuning in. If you have other suggestions on how to improve this, how to do this differently, let me know. I apologize for the technical difficulty in the middle, but you know, here we are, we're learning, and thanks for joining. I'll see you next week. Bye.